Good morning, everybody. Well, everybody is here. We're called to order the May 12th CFPUA board meeting. All members are present. And we'll take, first item, we'll take an adoption of our agenda. Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, Mr. Hackney, approval of the minutes.
The April minutes are in the packet. Need a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Public comments. Donna, do we have any speakers? No speakers today. Next item is our consent agenda. There are 9 items before you to review. Take any questions, comments.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Dr. Ken.
could we pull off number 8 for a brief discussion?
Okay. Pull number 8. Any other items?
I'll move the agenda.
Have a second.
Second.
All in favor, minus item number 8?
Aye.
Thank you. Dr. Cannon?
Yes, so I don't know if John McLean is around. I just wanted to, I'm in support of this resolution. I just wanted to briefly take a peek at it. So we do this, it's my understanding, we write off sort of uncollectibles twice a year. Is that correct? And I note that the amount this time is about 167,000. Is the majority of that residential, uncollectible residential?
It is, and you can see the breakdown. About 19,000 is non-residential and about 146,000 is residential.
Perfect. And I just know, just by coincidence, we were discussing this last month in sustainability. And I think the average, this is sort of on the low end, about twice a year, it looks like we write down about 200, sometimes as much as 300,000, sometimes as low as 200,000. And this just comes off our books, right? There's no tax treatment for this because we're an agency. Is that correct?
That's right. And John can probably provide more details about it as well.
And I actually don't even want to go into detail. I just want to note that roughly somewhere in the neighborhood of $400,000 to $500,000 a year we write off, and the vast majority of that is residential uncollectibles, and that it just comes off our books. That's basically what we're doing.
That's it.
So would it be accurate to say it comes out of ratepayer funds?
It's really, it's kind of almost a full accrual type of, entry. What we'll do is we'll make a provision each year for what we think is the balance out in those receivables that we won't ultimately collect, and we're booking that in the year that that those charges get charged. But yes, at the end of the day, these are ultimately balances that we had a claim to. We have exhausted, our tools in the toolbox, so to speak, to go after this money, and it's money that otherwise would be in our bank account to spend, and it's not.
One final thing, it's my understanding that we spend about $40,000 a year with collections agency. We spend that much asking them to try to run down this money for us. Is that about average? That was a number that I think Christy Irick used in
I think
another.
Yeah, and for this past year, it might have been a little different. I know that we weren't fully utilizing that collection agency, but I think that's probably an average year. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I just wanted to make sure we all took a peek at those numbers. Thanks.
Thank you. Any more comments or questions on that item? If not, I'll take a motion to approve item number 8.
Motion to approve item number 8.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That concludes our consent agenda. Moving on to new business administrative reports. Linda, any attorney's report?
Yeah, got it on the record. It's nice.
Okay, do that.
Linda, could you speak into your mic, or I guess you don't have a mic? Yeah. I couldn't hear the last sentence of what you said. Yeah.
Yes, I'm,
Ah.
I wanted to go into closed session to discuss the motion to intervene in CFPUA versus DEQ and Comores, and which is in the Court of Appeals. It won't take more than 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Executive Director's report, Jim.
Thank you. In your packet, you'll find the key indicators report, the environmental report, the safety report, and a customer service update. If there are questions on any of these items, staff or I would be glad to answer them.
Any questions or comments on the Executive Director's report this month? Now we'll move on to our committee reports. Executive Committee met on May 5th. Minutes are in your packet. Next up, Long Range Planning Committee, Mr. Sneeden.
Yes, the minutes of the May 5th meeting are in your packet, and we have a presentation, I believe, today on the Cape Fear River raw water allocation and supply. Are we making that presentation? Okay, I stand corrected. That presentation is in your packet for review, and I would highly recommend everybody take a look at that. It's got a lot of good information in it, and shows where we stand over the next 40 years in terms of water supply.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr.
I'd like, we move pretty quickly there through the executive committee. I did have a question if we could go backwards by one item.
Yes, sir.
I had a question on the PFAS well testing comments that happened in the executive committee. And I don't know if Ms. Eckert is here today, but I noted where it said that we're seeing elevated levels of PFAS in the emergency wells and CFPUA system. That's concerning, I think, to all of us. I just was wondering what the details were on it. And the second part of the question, if it could be addressed, is it seems that we're heading for a well testing protocol. I know that part of the issue has to do with the sophistication of the testing equipment. Have we set up who's going to test it and what kind of testing equipment they have access to, so that we can get some kind of accurate read as to get to the bottom of the issue? Are we seeing an expansion of PFAS in throughout our county?
Jim, you'll speak
Big
up.
question. I'm sorry to kind of throw it out there, but
Yeah, no good.
No, those emergency wells are used as their name would suggest, only in an emergency. It's not something that we would use on a regular basis, but we do annually test them for PFAS. So we don't have a lot of data between our annual testing. We saw an increase in some of the wells year over year. The state and the health department had previously begun studies to understand groundwater issues and where PFAS may be found and what those concentrations may be. So for us, this was an indication that the problem currently still exists as we would expect. And we were making sure the committee was aware, and with that, the board. And we are reaching out to the state and also the county health department, asking them to update us on where they are with their studies and make sure that information is moving forward.
Jim, what part of the county are our emergency wells?
Most of them are previous production wells that the county used before consolidation. So they're spread around. We don't have a lot of them. We don't have enough of them to really draw a lot of conclusions. In fact, some of the data is a little bit confusing, which is why we need more information to understand it. But really, that's a state function. We want the county to be involved because we know people are still in wells in many areas. So we're just making sure that this issue continues to get the attention of the state and the county.
So in general, I hear what you're saying. So we have them spread, I'm assuming, throughout the county. Is there one area more prevalent than the other that we have these wells? And are they separated by a fair amount of distance from the river.
We have some, most of them are on the eastern side of the county. They're spread out north to south. There are some, as the county narrows down in the southern part, they get closer to the river just by geography. But certainly, for us to draw a conclusion, we don't have enough information, which is why we want the people who do this, the state and the county health department, to be involved. And this was simply an update that our testing showed an increase year over year, and we're reaching out to those agencies to discuss what their plans are.
So to summarize it, we have increased elevations of PFAS that are showing all over the county. In some cases, a great distance from the river, relatively great distance, so that the river cannot be necessarily pointed at as being the source of the PFAS. But we don't have enough information to say definitively that's it, and that the testing we're asking for is the responsibility of the state, who does have the equipment to make these determinations as to what levels PFAS has. I don't believe our health department in the county does have that equipment.
I don't believe they do, but they had previously started a study to working with the state to understand these issues, and not all of the wells saw a significant increase. Some did, and that's why we wanted to make sure that information was available to the experts and the regulatory agencies.
What kind of follow-up will we have with this organization to track that, Jim? Is there, do you have a thought on how we could, I don't want to put too much of a spotlight on it, although I think I already have. Will we track this again in 3 months or 6 months? Because it's troubling.
I'd like to get a discussion with the county and the state underway before we say we're going to start doing more testing, or what our response will be. I'd like to see them, mostly the state, step forward and take some ownership of these issues. And again, all of this points back to one place, and that's Chemours. So, as we start talking about who's responsible for it, I have a pretty good idea, and from my opinion, I know where it originally came from. How it's dealt with now is what we need to understand, and that's where we're asking the state to step in and help us.
And there's a tension that's there between the state and us and Chemours. It's there. So I'm hopeful we can get a positive response from DEQ. I know we've got a new director there, and I know we're making efforts to increase our relationships with DEQ. I just would hate to see this fall in the cracks and go out another year and then have a report a year from now that says, oh yeah, the problem's there, it exists, and it's continued to get an increase. I think this could be information that would help us eventually in our lawsuit against Chemours.
And this is exactly why we brought the issue up and are bringing it forward.
Jim, if you need any help at the county level as far as raising this with public health or anything, please reach out to myself, and Commissioner Barfield, I know, would share whatever efforts we can to make sure that communication happens.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Evan. Any other comments, questions for Mr. Sneed on long-range planning? If not, we'll move into Finance Committee. Ms. Adams?
Okay, the minutes from the last week's May 5th Finance Committee meeting are in your packet. And John's got a presentation with, we do monthly financials first?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so, oh, wow. Just very briefly, running through our summary statement of revenues and expenditures. Always a number of interest is this total unrestricted fund balance. Our target is $50 million, and we are about $67.6 million, so looking favorable there. Another thing that we like to look at in terms of this report each month is this change in fund balance on the operating side. We are, I guess, in the black year to date. Our revenues have exceeded our expenditures. Again, any surplus that we generate during a given year is really a function of revenues. Our expenditures, we can't spend beyond what we budgeted. We budget revenues to equal those expenditures. So any surplus, therefore is a result of outperformance in our revenues. And you can see, this is a look at our revenues year to date. This is as of April 30th. And obviously, 83.33%, 10/12 of the year, or of the way through the year. And in terms of our total revenues compared to the budget, we are right there at 83.8. You can see that we're up and down on some different our different revenue streams. For example, you can see our investment earnings here. We're way below kind of where we budgeted. That'll come back up later in my budget presentation that I'll be giving in a few minutes. But that's being made up through other outperformance in our water and our wastewater revenues. So in terms of where we are in terms of our revenues, we are right there with where we would expect to be 10/12 through the year. So this is just a look at those key drivers again, what we assumed in the budget and what we're actually seeing. You can see that in terms of the volumetric charges, we are ahead, and that's for a couple of reasons. It's due to our ERUs for water being above where we expected them to be, and also our consumption per ERU being above where we expected. That is true also on the wastewater side, not for the ERUs, just slightly below, but right there, that's very, very close to where we projected them to be for the year, but seeing some outperformance in terms of consumption. You can see that consumption per ERU number is more pronounced. That gap has widened over the past couple of months and will continue to widen as we finish up the fiscal year. We've seen some dry weather conditions. People are wanting those green lawns, in the springtime, and we've seen a tick up in water production, water consumption, and that's mainly due, in large part to irrigation, and that's why you see this gap between these two here. So, are there any questions? Okay, thank you.
All right, next up, we have a update on the monthly billing timing modifications.
All right, good morning. So as you know, we are looking to move to monthly billing beginning in October of this year. Included in the budget is a cost for the operational expenses associated with monthly billing. But in the process of moving to monthly billing, we do need to do some reconfigurations in our billing system to the timing or the frequency of certain processes. So I just kind of wanted to briefly go through some of those with you. So currently, the due dates on charges are 30 days after the bill is sent out. We are looking to move that back to 25 days from the date that the bill is issued. That's right in line with other peer utilities in the area, so there's really no difference to the customer. In addition, then late fees, which are currently assessed at the 32nd day from the date that the bill is generated, would be moved back to 27 days. So if the bill is due in 25 days, a late fee is assessed at the 27th day. The collections notification currently, when we send out a letter to the customer, the charges are aged at 120 days from the due date. And then that gives them an additional 30 days before we send that to a collection agent. And we would look at moving that back to sending that letter at day 60. So the charges then are 60 days past the due date. So basically just cutting it in half. For new loans, we would move from a bi-monthly installment to a monthly installment. It doesn't affect any of our current loans, but on new loans, we would have those installments billed monthly. In addition to that, we would also move our payment arrangements from having the installments made bi-monthly as they currently are on bills to monthly. So again, it's really no change. It's just reflecting, that payment on their monthly statement. And then finally, the convenience fee that is billed by our payment processor is based on an average ticket price. And currently that fee is $3.75 per $500 transaction on credit and debit cards. And we are asking that our payment processor relook at what our average ticket price would be for a monthly bill, so then they can price that convenience fee accordingly. So those are some of the things that we are looking at in the process of doing the reconfiguration to our billing system in order to accommodate monthly billing. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have about these processes. Yeah. All right, thank you.
Thank you. And lastly, John's back with the presentation on the 2021-22 recommended operating budget.
Okay, so in March and April, we presented a forecast of what we think it's going to cost to operate and maintain the system for FY22. And over this past month, we've been working to balance those projected needs with our forecasted revenues. And there's been a couple of challenges. First of all, we made a commitment to not raise rates for this year. We are planning to go to a new rate structure somewhere around the beginning of calendar year 22. And so we didn't want to raise rates just to change them again in 6 months or so. As I mentioned in the monthly finance update, in terms of our investment revenues, we could normally in an average year count on about $1.5 million coming in from investing our funds. We are certainly bound by state statute in the things that we can invest in, but generally we would generate about $1.5 million. That this year that has plummeted down to we're probably going to be somewhere around $200,000. And that's just because of the low yield environment that we're currently in. And then thirdly, the suspension of shutoffs and late fees has had a revenue impact. Certainly, things like the premise visit fees, obviously, the late fees, penalties, things like that, delinquency fees, reconnect fees, all of those different fees. Now, even though we're planning on resuming our normal shutoffs sometime in the fall, we don't think that those revenues are going to be at a level that they have historically been. So those are really those three challenges. But with that said, this budget is balanced, and I think that it fully funds what we need in terms of what it takes to operate and maintain the system for FY22. It funds our capital program in a balanced way with that $18 million, and obviously it comes with no increase in rates to our customers. And before I get into the presentation, I did want to mention there's a couple of supplemental attachments included in the packet. There's a digested budget document that's just, it's about a 13-page document that just kind of runs through the expenditure side and the revenue side, those assumptions for the revenues, those types of things for your review. There's also a draft of the rate and fee schedule for FY22. That's included in the packet, and then also the line item budget that breaks down each department and division's budget by the individual line item. So just wanted to mention those. So this is a look at where we are now in terms of what we're proposing for the FY22 recommended budget. You can see that the budget that we're recommending is just under $92 million. That is different than what we've presented in the past couple of months, March and April. This comparison compares, what we're proposing as of today against what was adopted in FY21, and you can see it's about $2 million higher. And so this is obviously it's a balanced budget, and you can see those differences and how they shake out in terms of the different expenditure categories here, and the different revenue streams, different revenue sources on the revenue side. So it's about a 2.2% increase over what was adopted last year. And so this is just a comparison from that number that you just saw, the recommended budget number just under $92 million compared to what was presented in March and April. And it's about $1 million. It's $1,085,960 less than what we presented in the prior couple months. And we were able to reduce the budget. We, one big thing is the standby pay for EMD. Because of COVID-19, we've kind of shifted some of the scheduling and staffing for EMD to be as responsive as possible for lab testing. We anticipate that to kind of shift back to a more normal schedule. And so we were able to update those numbers there on the salaries and benefit side. And then on the operating side, or the operating expense category side, compared to what was presented last month, about a $975,000 difference, decrease compared to what was presented. And that's really just based on better information. We're that much closer to next fiscal year, able to kind of predict things a little better and kind of refine those forecasts. We were able to, in centralized maintenance, just kind of shift some things around in terms of, pushing things either to a capital project, and it's going to be funded out of the capital budget, or just kind of shifting the timing on some of these maintenance requests. And so that's kind of what's making up the differences on what was presented last month. Again, this is just a breakdown, kind of a line item breakdown of the salaries and benefits. I'm not really going to go into too much detail here. This is essentially what was presented in the prior, a couple of months, March and April. We have a little bit of a difference in terms of that standby pay, and that obviously, kind of ripples through the different taxes and, benefits categories. But looking at a $1.3 million increase, about a 5% increase in the salaries and benefits category. Just a couple of things to note, just to rehash very quickly. These have been mentioned in the previous couple of months, but we're adding 4 new positions that you can see here, doing a 3% merit pool and a 1.5% cost of living adjustment for current employees. And then there's some pressure from the retired or the required rate that we as a participating employer are required to pay to the retirement system, the local government employees retirement system, going up from 10.15% to 11.35%. This is just a breakdown by department of the operating categories. And this is essentially kind of what we've been talking about in the prior couple of months. Those kind of big changes. I'll go back one. Here we have some software licensing. That's kind of a big difference that's sticking out here. Here in customer service, this is kind of factored into here is the postage for moving to monthly billing. So there is a cost to that. And then this non-departmental line is our insurance, our insurance that we carry. And let's see. And then water treatment, that's a kind of another one to highlight. Again, it's really due to the cost of the raw water that we purchased from Lower Cape Fear Water and Sewer Authority. They went up on their rates for this next fiscal year, and so we had to factor that in to our operating costs. This budget obviously funds the required debt service, and it also funds that $18 million pay-go target. If you had a chance to look at that coverage calculation that's included in the key indicators, you can see that we're right at that 1.8 times coverage level. And so this $18 million is really a deliberate calculation based on the size of our capital program and then how much debt we want to carry in proportion to what's ratepayer funded. So again, that $18 million is sized properly to kind of balance our debt load while providing sufficient funding for our capital program. On the revenue side, I just wanted to take a quick look at those kind of key drivers behind our water and wastewater fixed and volumetric charges. This is kind of our forecast of our ERUs for water and wastewater here. And you can see it just kind of follows this trend line that we've been seeing over the past 5 years. So I think that that's probably a good, pretty accurate, kind of forecast of what we'll see this next fiscal year. In terms of the usage or the consumption per ERU, you can see it's kind of floated around. It kind of peaked in FY20. This was that very dry year. If you'll remember that, obviously more pronounced on the water side than the wastewater side, didn't peak quite as much on the wastewater side, and it's because that consumption was driven by irrigation. We've seen it kind of come down, and this is what we're currently seeing in FY21, and we're just assuming that our customers will consume at the same level that they currently are. That's what's being assumed in FY22. Questions there? This is the counts of our of ERUs that are assessed, the system development charge. That's kind of a key driver for determining the amount of revenue that we think that we'll collect in a given year. Obviously, there's the calculation on a per ERU basis. We presented that a couple of months ago, ran through the calculation. Published to the website, all that stuff, and it was adopted, I think, last month or the month before. But the other piece to it is the number of ERUs that will actually be assessed, and this is, kind of a trend. And this looks maybe a little more pronounced than it is. If I change the scale, it would be a little smoother. But this is what we saw last year. This is year to date. This isn't a projection of what the entire year will be. So this is really 10/12ths, or I guess at this point we were 3/4 through the fiscal year. So this number should come up. And so I would think that what we're going to see this fiscal year is this level right here at 1650 is what we're projecting in terms of the number of ERUs that we will assess an SDC for. We're assuming the same count for water and wastewater. Those numbers do vary, but they're generally, right in tandem with each other. So I think that's a pretty accurate, kind of forecast of what we'll see in terms of the number of ERUs that get assessed that SDC for FY22. Just a very brief look at kind of those other revenue sources. We were projecting a decrease in our other charges for services. Again, as I mentioned before, the shutoffs, we're going to resume those at some point during FY22, but obviously those revenues will be down from where they have historically been. The investment earnings are down $1.4 million year over year, and that's just due to that extremely low yield environment. And so we're factoring that into what we're projecting for investment earnings for FY22. And then we have our appropriated fund balance, which is really a funding source it's really a spending of prior year revenues. Every year we have money that was set aside from the city and county to fund the OPEB benefits. And that's just kind of baked in there each and every year. So that's normally $500,000. It's normally in there. There's this other piece here that what we've done is we've identified some excess budget this year where we've carved out those funds and put those monies into a debt service reserve, and we will use those funds to pay a portion of the final maturity on the 2011 revenue bonds that become due on August 1st. So that was kind of a mechanism that we used to kind of balance the budget for FY22, given those revenue challenges that I mentioned before. And so we're basically going to be using, I guess, FY21 budgeted revenues to pay a portion of the final maturity on the 2011 revenue bonds that come due on August 1st. In terms of timing, we have the Finance Committee and the board meeting next month. We'll be obviously making the same presentation or presenting these same numbers, I should say. We'll present the budget ordinance, the actual document that delineates the appropriations and the estimated revenue sources. And we will also recommend for adoption the rate and fee schedule. So that'll all happen in June. And just to kind of give a picture, kind of beyond June, looking to resume our disconnects in the fall. Target date is September 1st of 2021. Beginning monthly billing in October of 2021. Looking to come to finance and the board meeting in November to adopt the new rate structure that was presented several months back, with that new rate structure going into effect January 1 of 2022. So just a kind of a look at the calendar there. Are there any questions?
And John, we'll have our public hearing next month.
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Concludes Finance Sustainability Committee. Dr. Cannon.
Yes, thanks so much. We met in April on the 22nd, and the minutes are included in your packet. Also included in your packet is an explanation of some of the work we're doing on assessing needs for affordability. I'd like to thank Lindsay and her team and John McLean for doing just incredible work, putting together the research on what the needs are out there and how we can address them. We anticipate bringing a resolution to the board soon. I also want to thank Jennifer and Rob for bringing really creative and thoughtful reviews of this discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, if there's any,
Chairman?
oh, yes, sir.
I think I missed a meeting or something where it was discussed, but what happened with the proposal to put in flow restrictors instead of disconnects?
Mr. Chairman, I can't hear who's speaking.
I'm sorry. The question is, what happened with the proposal to install flow restrictors instead of disconnecting services?
The flow restrictor program was abandoned, and we extended out the timeline and just went to disconnections.
And why was it abandoned?
Just from feedback from the community and just opposition to putting in that program, and kind of keeping in line with what all the other providers were doing. We put in more time, more ability to pay, more programs, and just did away with that program. Jim, is there anything to add?
No, and it's a new program. There hasn't been one in the state that's been tried, so there really wasn't a lot of information for us to look on and see how it had worked in another community. And the decision was simply to work with customers to put them on payment plans and just resume the historical approach, which would be to disconnect people for non-payment beginning in September.
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. O.
just make a quick follow-up comment to Larry's question. I think if you look under the file of no good deed goes unpunished, you'll find this, the flow restrictor program meant with all the best of intentions and really meant as a compromise, as a mid-step. It just never resonated with the public, and indeed got turned on its head. And the public pushback, it was misinterpreted and frankly became a distraction to the other good work we were trying to do. So a tool that could have helped a lot of people has been shelved as a result of it as we move directly to disconnects. I just want to make that comment because it was brought forward by our director, Jim Fleckner. It was a good idea. It was well researched, And maybe one day it'll surface again, but completely, in my opinion, misunderstood.
Well, I would just like to comment. I received maybe half a dozen emails concerning that. And I'm sure there were a few more out there. But what we've chosen to do is to disconnect probably 5,000 or 6,000 customers a year from service rather than providing them a flow restrictor that would provide them a minimal amount of water. And we're doing this based on a couple of handfuls of comments that we've had from the public. And I just don't think that that's good policy on our part.
So, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
So we pushed back the disconnects to September. And one of the central project we've been doing in sustainability is we're sort of trying to move from a stick to a carrot approach. And we are working on identifying, we know that there's a certain segment of our ratepayer base that simply cannot afford our water, no matter how economically we do it, right? It's just the math of our local economy. So, and circling back to when I asked them to pull off the bad debt write-downs. So we are looking at the numbers. How many people in our community cannot afford our water? And we're hoping to reduce in the future the number of people who are actually disconnected. My North Star is that no kid in our community will wake up to a dry tap, ever. So now that's a lofty goal. But right now we are identifying sources of money, and we are going to facilitate, sort of if you build it, they will come. We're trying to facilitate a project where we know about how many people in our community cannot afford our water, and we set up a funding mechanism. And that will be sort of a ongoing, and the funding mechanism obviously is that's the money shot, literally. So we are working on that. And my goal is that very few people moving forward will be disconnected simply because they can't afford our water. So just know that we're working on it.
Oh, and I followed what you've done, and you're doing wonderful work. But in terms of no kid waking up to not have water, I think we had an opportunity to guarantee that with the flow restrictor, and we're passing up on that because of some comments from, I mean, certainly well-intentioned comments from the public, but they were misled or misinterpreting, I think, or misunderstanding the impact of what they were saying. And I just felt like it needs to be said that we're missing an opportunity there. And I hate to see us do that.
And we may need to revisit the issue if we find that our project to reduce drastically, if not by 100%, disconnects. If our project isn't working, we may need to circle back to that. But my hope is that there are so many people focused on this issue, and there's such renewed interest, and the past year and some change of suffering we've had in this country, I feel that things are being shaken up. I feel that there are going to be funding sources available. And so I hope, and we're definitely working on it apace in the committee. So, but thank you. I appreciate those comments.
Okay.
What would be a typical funding source, Dr. Cannon? I mean, that's an easy word to say.
So, right. So, of course, knock, knock, knock. We're going to be knocking, hopefully, on some local government, state government, federal government funding. We also know that we have a $1.25 billion endowment in our community that's coming online. So short term, looking for money from Congress, money from the state, money from perhaps city and local government. Medium term, perhaps money from the foundation. And long term, I would like to see, and we're talking about the possibility of using ratepayer funds by working with the state legislature to change the statute. We know that we're writing off about $200,000 to $400,000 a year in bad debt. That's coming out of ratepayer funding, right? Plus, we're paying people to chase those bad accounts around, and we're using staff time. So the idea is, let's look for short term, then medium term, and then long term.
Well, until you get the statute revised or changed in some way, shape, or form, I don't see how you can do that. Because the statute, if my memory serves me correctly, it's very specific as to the way we treat our ratepayers, all even.
Absolutely, and we're going to do that, and hopefully they will change the statute. But we have a 501c3, the Waterway NC. That's a revolving fund right now, and it's just not adequately funded. So that's where we're looking to. And you know, the truth of the matter is, I suspect once you know, a lot of our low-income community is actually being made whole now in some ways by assistance that's coming down through the federal government. And we all acknowledge that sometimes we're just disorganized and we forget to pay a bill. And then they send you a letter saying they're going to cut off your services and we pay it. So in September, as these letters start going out, we hope that people have better resources now than they did, you know, in the past. We have data going all the way back to the beginning of our organization, obviously. But yes, I'm also hopeful that we're going to be able to, through the various funding packages that are coming through Congress and through the state. But they can't help us until we tell them what we need. So that's what we're working on right now.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much for that question.
Mr. Chairman. If I could just add to it, because of the work that was alluded to earlier in the Sustainability Committee's notes that we're working on and the work of the staff, that we've been able to narrow down the universe of that, we'll call it the hardcore, those that simply can't afford it, from that 5,000 to 6,000, Larry, that you were talking about, really down to around 1,750. Those are that's the real number of those that simply can't afford it. So if nothing else, we've been able to, through this process and through this ongoing conversation, to really narrow the focus as to where we need to be putting our efforts, you know, and ultimately, you know, time and money as well. So that's a real positive, and it would not have happened without the staff support and going back and researching the data and historical payments of our ratepayers. So we're getting there, and we should have a resolution soon coming from the Sustainability Committee, which will continue this conversation in much more specifics, including dollar amounts in the future.
Well, I think the other point is that the water restrictor program was a pilot. The plan was to test it, figure out how it worked, see what how many people would come online to pay, et cetera. But I mean, we still, as a board, have all these options still. We just postponed it due to timing feedback. Kind of, we didn't know what the pandemic was going to do, how it was going to play out. But by summer, I think the vision was we'd have a little bit more understanding of that. And I mean, I think it's very realistic. We could always bring that back to some extent as needed with everybody doing the due diligence that we did to kind of figure out where we were. So I don't think that's dead in the water. I mean, I thought it was a great idea too. I think misinformation was a part of it, but I think in a few months, hopefully we'll have a little bit of clear perspective, and we may do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but I don't think that's out of the question in the future moving forward. Nobody wants people to get their water shut off, and we've made that clear from day one. We've just been trying to figure out the best way to accommodate that in this time. So I think that's going to come back potentially, and maybe a culmination of the things sustainability is working on, and then these other things that we've worked on, we come up with a broad solution. So, but thank you, Mr. Sneed. Any other old business or closing comments before we go into closed session? With that, I'll take a motion to go to closed session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.